Hello there, I'm Claudia Lash, and I am working on a project which I call Peekaboo Quilts. Peekaboo Quilts are reverse applique quilts with a little bit of fancy stitching or decorative stitching. They're fun to make, and they're made to be wall quilts pretty much because it's just easier. If you're doing fancy stitching, you want to be able to do what you want to do and not have to worry too much about wandering or having them get, I don't know. It's just a lot of work for a bed quilt. But I wanted to show you, these are the ones that I had done already. This is Skyverse. This one didn't have a name, but I'm calling it the flower. This one is the universe, something crazy universe, and it was for a 12 by 12. And this is the scroll quilt. I decided I was going to make, I'm going to do both, I think, a scroll quilt and a flower. But I'm starting with the scroll because it has circles. And you might notice this big blob here is what I'm working on. Notice how it really has nothing on it. That's because everything is underneath the top layer. This is the top layer, and under the top layer is a layer which we can't see right now, but it, if you watched a previous video, you could see it. It's got several colors coming down, like a graduated or a gradiated color fabric. And then under the top layer and then under the colorful layer, there is a layer of stabilizer, which looks like that. And you can pin the stabilizer, or you can, well, I decided I would just sew around the edge with a basting stitch just to hold it still for me. And the one thing I might suggest before we go too far, it's easier to not get your quilt idea too big, because the smaller it is, the easier it's going to be to work with. So for me, this size right here is going to be fairly good size when I'm talking about doing fancy stitches like here or there, or like something like this. It's a little more difficult to move under your sewing machine. So keep that in mind. You don't want it too big, but you want it, well, I wanted it to be big enough to make a scroll out of in the end. So after you have your layering done, then it's time to make some circles on top of your quilt. And in the last video I did, we talked about preparing your machine to make circles and all of that. And you do need to have a practice piece, which I did in the last one. Here's one of my practice pieces. I think there's another one laying around somewhere. But before you do any sewing on the big thing or the main quilt, make sure you have a practice piece. So that's what I have. I think it's ready. And the next thing that I'm going to do is make some circles. So I'm going to take this down and show you how I make circles on top of this quilt. You can do them with a circle maker, but I want to do them another way too, which allows me to make different size circles. So let's go on to making the circles. There's lots of ways to make circles. I use different things. You can use a plate, you can use a paper plate, you can use a circle template like this. This is called The Whole Thing. It's by Creative Grids. It goes up to, looks like 3 inches and down to, well, pretty small, 1/4 inch. You can also get bigger perfect circles by, I think these are by Karen K. Buckley. And they're, I don't know how big they go to, but they may go to maybe 4 inches. You have to look on the package. But if you want some big circles, like I've used a couple of big circles on some of those. So what I do is I have a fun little tool that I use quite a bit. This is my circle ruler, and I use this also when I'm doing my Ferris wheel flowers quilt. And just because a lot of times I want a very big circle, I might want a 10 or a 12-inch diameter circle. For this project, I think maybe 6 might be as big as I'm going to go. And I think this might be a 6-inch circle, but let me show you how this works. Because I sell these at quilt shows, and they're just very easy to work with. First of all, I have a piece of freezer paper here, and there's a hole in the middle which you could stick a thumbtack or a pointy thing in, but I don't. I just put my finger there. And let's say I want to make a 5-inch circle, which would be a little smaller than that. So a half of 5 is 2.5. So I find the 2.5 mark on my ruler. There's a little hole there. I can put my pencil in here, and I can just turn it around and go right on around. And nice. Can't find my center, but it's okay. I could have marked it. There's a 5-inch circle. I can do anything from, I don't know, if you wanted a very small circle, you could do a 2-inch or maybe even a little less. But if you've got small circles, these are better. But you can go all the way up to a 12-inch circle. So these are very handy. What I'm going to do with this, after I have these circles drawn, I think this is a 6-inch. Then I'm going to take them and I'm going to cut this out. I may not look how good I'm doing with these scissors, but I'm not very good with scissors. I may cut this out, and then I'm going to put it on my top of my piece. This is freezer paper, so it's got a little bit of stuff on the back, and it will stick to this, and then I can use a marker to go around it. So that's what I'm going to do. I am going to make some big circles on here. Just draw them with a marker, or a white marker, or this is a friction pen, which supposedly is going to come out with your iron. I'm just going to press this down and draw around it. Then I'm going to press maybe another circle. I'm going to put several circles on here, and then I will show you after that's ready what we do next. Okay, I wanted to show you very quickly. I used a piece of freezer paper. I thought you can use an iron and stick it down, but I thought I don't need to do that. I can stick this down, use my blue marker, and just hold it and go right around the edge, which worked fine. But I put it under my machine just to see how it was going to work, and I noticed it's quite difficult to see. And this is a blue marker. If you have a less busy fabric for your front, that's probably going to be easier. But once you have the mark, all you do is, I have my stitch set on 2.0. You don't want it too big because this is where you're going to be cutting up to. And then just slowly go right around on this blue line. And the thing I wanted you to notice is I'm having, because this is kind of big, I'm having to fold this up to keep it out of the way. If you have a smaller project, you don't have to do this. Notice I'm having to stop and realign once in a while. If there is a little spot on this circle that is not perfectly in line, so be it. Nobody can see that anyway. But I kind of wish I had a darker marker. Now once I get this sewn, I think it will be easier to see. I'm using white thread. You could use a thread that matched your fabric. That works. I wouldn't use a bright thread that flashes with your fabric because this will stay there and it will be under your stitches. So you don't want that to be too bright and stand out. When I get back to the beginning, I am just going to go right over a few stitches. And I don't need to knot or anything. I'm just going to pull him out and clip. And then I have a circle here. So before I go too far, I may put another circle here, and I may cut one or two out and see where I'm at underneath, because I don't want all of my circles to be in the same color area. So it's okay to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to cut out just the top layer of this fabric. And I did that in a previous video. I'll do it again when I have a few more to put here. That's about circles.